the Preakness, the middle jewel of racing's Triple Crown. It's a race where the Derby winner gets to show he's not just a one-trick pony. The race that can justify whether we have a legitimate contender for horse racing's ultimate trifecta, the Triple Crown. And now, coming to you from Las Vegas, VSiN and TVG present Inside the Preakness, the view from Vegas. Welcome everybody to the VSiN studio at the South Point Casino, tip of the strip in Las Vegas. And when it comes to betting on horse racing in Las Vegas, there's nothing like the Triple Crown. Vinny Magliulo from Gone Gaming, an enormous handle for the Kentucky Derby.
Brent didn't disappoint. The single most wagered race of the year, $6.2 million here in the state of Nevada. Preakness will be about a third of that, but if Justify wins, the betting on the Belmont Stakes will get a huge jump start.
Okay, now we are joined by our round table of experts here. Patrick McQuiggan from the South Point Racebook over here keeps an eye on everything about the thoroughbreds, and of course, the legend himself from the Win, the man who puts up the early odds, who had to cash a 300-to-1 ticket on Justify to win the Derby, Mr. Johnny Avello. Guys, great to have you back. Patrick, what a year this could wind up being for the thoroughbred set.
You know, with Justified winning, it reminds me of a Vince Cully phrase, a year that was so improbable, the impossible happened. Justified broke the streak of 135 years of Apollo.
Down goes Apollo. And Johnny, I know that you have already put out odds over at the Win about Justify not winning just the Preakness, but going on to capture the Triple Crown. Tell us about that wager.
We put him, well, we always put up each individual horse to win a Triple Crown, and I put up Justify at 60-to-1 after his maiden special weight, and they jumped all over it. They also the Triple Crown on any horse was $850, minus $850 no, plus $650, yeah, 6.5-to-1. That wasn't enough for him. They needed to have Justify, the horse that was highly touted. They needed to have him at 60-to-1, 50-to-1, 40-to-1, right down the ladder until he was 8-to-1 on Derby Day to win a Triple Crown, and they were still betting him.
What in the world did they know that we didn't know?
To me, it feels a lot like Groundhog Day. And when I say that, I went through this same experience with American Pharoah. We got pounded on him in the Kentucky Derby Future book. They also bet him to win the Triple Crown at less odds at 60-to-1, and he went on, and we also lost on the Triple Crown. So, you know, this Baffert's killing me.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you mentioned trainer Bob Baffert. Of course, he trained Justify, but he was a trainer of American Pharoah. Here's what he has to say about Justify.
Gone there, it's just, it's exciting.
Justified, he's on a dizzying ascent to greatness.
For a horse that's come in 75 days, he walked in that paddock like he owned the place. He stood in there like a statue. He didn't make a move. There was a lot of commotion going on. I saw a lot of horses get nervous, and he knows he's Big Pete, you know. When you have those super athletes like he is, just like any human athlete, the ones that are just, you know, they do everything effortlessly. So I just have to pinch myself that I have a horse like that.
Beautiful horse in motion. It's interesting that Baffert has taken 4 Kentucky Derby winners to the Preakness. They have all won, and look at the prices to win. American Pharoah paid only $380, went off at 4-5. You go back to Silver Charm, his first Derby winner. Oh, you could cash, Vinny, you could cash a Preakness ticket for $820. That's the respect for the great Bob Baffert.
And I remember that horse very well because Bob and Beverly Lewis were the owners. They were customers of mine over at Caesar's Palace. And a terrific horse, folks. You know, to Patrick's point, this is turning out, this 2018 is turning out to be quite a historic year. Another connection to the Baltimore area, Maryland, Baltimore County, over Virginia. A 16 seed beats a number 1 seed. We've also got a pretty decent hockey team here in Las Vegas, a first-year team in the Final Four of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And as Patrick mentioned, the first unraced 2-year-old since Apollo to win the Kentucky Derby.
I'm glad you mentioned the Golden Knights. Mr. Avello, you have the best two-teamer in town. The Golden Knights to win the Stanley Cup and Justify to capture the Triple Crown. What are you paying on that one, lad?
The yes for both of those things to happen is plus 550, and the no is minus 750. And I'm a huge loser on both, so I said, let's compound that loss.
Very
Patrick,
generous.
you and I are going to have to motor down to the wind and see if we can get in on that two-teamer.
Absolutely. I absolutely love it. All they need is 2 more wins to get to the Stanley Cup.
That's exactly what they need right now, and we shall see what happens. By the way, the weather is supposed to be bad, another off track. We certainly know that Justify can handle a sloppy track as he did in Louisville. But, Johnny, what's your feeling about an off track at Pimlico?
You know, I try to replay races in my head, how they may go. And I replayed the Derby. Before the Derby went, I said, this is how it's going to go. Promises Fulfilled is going to go to the lead. Justify is going to get out of the gate well, sit right behind him till about a mile mark. Promises Fulfilled will drop dead and Justify will win the race easy. And that's exactly how it went. Now, in this particular race, I see Justify doing something similar, getting out of the gate, not necessarily going to the front because there's a horse, Quip, who probably needs to get out of the gate early, so he may be in the top position and then sitting there and making his move again. One thing I haven't seen from Justify yet, and maybe we will see it in this race, is being pushed, making that move, and another horse going right with him and making him exert more than he needs to. Haven't seen it yet. You ask, you know, what could happen in this race? Well, this track is a mess, and a lot of these horses probably don't even belong, but who knows when the track is that bad?
Yeah, now, Patrick, we just saw video of him working out on what was already an off track at Pimlico the other morning, and it could be heavy going again.
And I think it will be, Brent. And I thought he was tested in the Kentucky Derby. They ran 30 lengths faster in the first half of the race than the final half. He was pressed. They went a 45 half mile, going a mile and a quarter.
You know, to Patrick's point, Brent, I don't think we'll see those fractions that early in this race, only because the weather has been pretty rainy with the build-up to the race. So I think as we get into the weekend, obviously, as much rain as there is, I think it's going to be the great equalizer in this race. More so, I mean, post position is not an issue. They've got about a third of the horses that we did for the Derby. But I think rain could be a factor. It doesn't bother him. It shouldn't bother too many of these horses. But it will be a bit of an equalizer with this much rain.
Guys, we've got to give Mike Smith credit for the ride that he gave Justify in the Derby. I want you to take a look at this slideshow. He got him out of number 7. There you see we have highlighted him, and here he is already on the lead. And look how clean he is coming home. When you look at the rest of that field, covered with slop. And Justify looks like he ran on a perfect sunny day, always had the lead, never felt any pressure whatsoever. And I thought, Patrick and John, I thought it was a brilliant ride by Mike Smith because he got him out. The key thing was to get out, and he kept him there against very fast fractions.
And that was Bob Baffert's biggest worry. He kept saying, if we get out of the gate, we're fine. And Mike Smith did a great job of getting him out of the gate.
And you don't have to tell Mike Smith what to do. He is one of the best, and I'm sure that, you know, Bob gave him some instructions, but Mike is such a pro, and he's running so many big races and just seems to be in the right spot or do the right thing at the beginning of the race. So, you know, it's to have Mike on your horse is, you know, a guy that you want when the going gets tough.
Yeah. You know, if you go back and you think, because, guys, you watched it live, the Santa Anita Derby, Vinny.
Yep.
And Justify beat Bolt d'Oro in that particular race. And some of us weren't willing to buy in because of the curse of Apollo. No horse that did not run at the age of 2 had won the Derby since 1882, I believe the year was. But if you go back to that day at Santa Anita, he was a brilliant horse. I mean, he kind of gleams when he comes out.
You know, Brent, I think we did get caught up in the unraced 2-year-old stigma. And this horse, 4-0, he's answered every call. Again, the fact of the matter is, and he gets better each race. And he picked the Kentucky Derby to really show us what a true champion he is. Again, this race here, barring, as long as he's safe, he's not nothing unforeseen happens, he's the horse to beat. He's just head and shoulders literally above everybody else in this race.
And it's the easiest race amongst the three.
Certainly the shortest, right? Mile and 3/16.
Absolutely. And the least amount of horses. They only have 8 horses going tomorrow. And the last time they had 8 horses in the Preakness, it was American Pharoah's year.
Who wants to go up against the bully? He beat 20 horses in the Derby. He beat everybody convincingly. Now he goes to the Preakness. Are you going to go after him in the Preakness, or maybe take a shot in the next race, freshen up a little bit? And that's what happens in the Preakness. There's been some bullies along the way, and no one wants to go against the bully. And we'll wait to the Belmont to see how the bully does in the Preakness, to see if we want to take him on in the last of the Triple Crown races.
Well, if 7 is your lucky number, you're all in on Justify. 5, 6, and 7 are Baffert's favorite post positions. And he's hit number 7, Vinny, for both the Derby and now the Preakness.
Well, you look at Mike Smith and Bob Baffert here, you can liken it to a really good football team, Brent. And when you've got a terrific coach like a Belichick, you need a good quarterback to make you look good like a Tom Brady. Well, this is as close in horse racing as you're going to come to finding a top-flight coach and a top-flight quarterback.
But come on, guys. There's got to be a way. If you can't beat Justify, how can we make some money? That's what it's all about here in Las Vegas, right? All right. We're going to come back and explore that and see if we can make money with an overwhelming favorite in the Preakness. This is Inside the Preakness, the view from Vegas, presented by VSiN and TVG. You can listen to VSiN on Sirius XM, channel 204, and follow us online at vsin.com and on Twitter at VSiN Live.
Vegas, baby, the sports gambling capital of the world and the home of VSiN, the Vegas Stats and Information Network. VSiN is the first network dedicated to coverage of sports betting, a multi-billion-dollar business. We broadcast live 7 days a week from a fishbowl studio located in the middle of the sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino on Las Vegas Boulevard in the heart of Sin City. Our all-star lineup includes Hall of Fame broadcaster Brent Musburger, legendary oddsmaker Jimmy Vaccaro, and the rest of the guys in the desert. The view from Las Vegas can provide insights no other network can offer to the rest of the sports world. VSiN doesn't just give the latest odds. Our experts take you behind the sportsbook to explain how those odds are set and why they change. Listen to us on Sirius XM channel 204. Check us out at vsin.com or on the VSiN app. This is VSiN, changing the way you watch sports.
Welcome back to Inside the Preakness, the view from Vegas, and a look at the middle jewel of horse racing's Triple Crown, presented by VSiN and TVG.
Out of the 22,000-plus thoroughbreds that were born 3 years ago, this is the one that's been chosen.
They're coming to the wire. He's just awesome. Justify has won the Kentucky Derby.
Winning the Derby is hard enough, but the path Justify took to get there is something we haven't seen in 136 years. So here we are with our eyes set on Old Hilltop to witness Justify take the next step towards Triple Crown glory. And if you think he won't seize the moment in Baltimore, think again. Every time Bob Baffert saddled the Derby winner in the Preakness, he ended the day hoisting the Woodlawn Vase. You can call it fate, you can call it destiny, but the fact of the matter is, Justify is just as good as we thought he was, and his trainer is the best in the business. This is where history will be made. This is the middle jewel. This is the 143rd Preakness.
All right, gentlemen, we've got an overwhelming 1-2 favorite. Patrick, what would be your advice on making money? Not necessarily who you're going to back in this race yourself, But what would you advise someone who wants to make $1.50 on this race?
Play trifecta. I think the trifecta is the best way to make money in this particular race.
How about you, Johnny? What would be your advice?
Well, short of putting up $500,000 to make 10% bet and justify the show, I think the way I would bet the race is I think Justify has a better chance of winning the race than Good Magic has of running second. So I would probably use Justify on top. I would also use Good Magic in second with some other horses underneath, maybe a Lone Sailor, a Bravazzo, that type of horse. But I would also put those horses that I was going to use in the third position in the second position with Good Magic in the third spot, and try to get it and try to hit a try, like Patrick says, because in a horse field it's really difficult to do much to make money.
I'll fill in the handicappers trifecta. I agree with both Patrick and Johnny Brent. You know, you want to look at it from a tri perspective here, but the other part is you may want to look at the rest of the card. Don't just limit yourself just to this race. Look at the rest of the card, too, which is a very good card at Pimlico, and rolling doubles and pick threes and pick fours.
Okay, good advice from all three. Let's take a look at the 8-horse field. Let's start with the number 1 horse, guys. And that is Quip. Morning line odds of 12-1, Patrick.
Adding weight, and Quip hasn't been on an off track yet, and we don't know how he can perform on an off track. Adding weight, I don't like him at all.
He's owned by Windstar and the China Horse Club, who also own Justify, so I know they'll be rooting for Justify. But, you know, this horse has had 4 solid races, and nothing to be ashamed of in the Arkansas Derby. He's getting better. I could see him in the mix in the top 3 or 4.
Second in the Arkansas Derby, as Johnny mentioned. Tampa Bay Derby winner in March. He's fresh, but for me, it's about also eliminating some horses. I can't put him in the first 2 spots.
All right, Vinny, let's have you lead off with the number 2 horse in the field.
Well, you want to pay attention to this one, Brent, Lone Sailor, because this is a closer. Second in the Louisiana Derby. 8th 2 weeks ago in the Kentucky Derby, so did deal with that particular track and the weather there. I'm going to utilize Lone Sailor in my exotics in the number 2 spot.
Had a bad start in the Derby. Went right to the rail, and he was picking off tired horses at the end of the race. That Louisiana Derby was his best race. If he runs back to that, he would certainly be in the mix. I respect the trainer, Tom Amos, who's winning at a 30% clip, and he picks up one of the jockey with the livest hands you'll ever see in Ortiz.
In the numbers-wise, for me, he's just a little bit too far back to be using in the top 3.
Okay, now we come to one of the long shots, Patrick. Sporting Chance. And the morning line odds 30-1.
Dwayne Lucas, how about that? I mean, he has 2 in here, and I think this one has more chance than the other one. Sporting Chance I would use in the 3rd and 4th hole if you drop down to a superfecta.
He appears to like an off track, and what I mean by that, he's won over sloppy track at Saratoga a long time ago, and he moves up on wet tracks, and his workouts are good on a wet track. But I think overall he's just too slow.
Right, he's probably going to be out front. He did run on the Derby undercard and finished 4th in the Pat Day.
All right, we move to another long shot, Vinny. Diamond King 30-1 on the morning line.
Javier Castellano, a big pickup. First in the Federico Tessio last month at Laurel, so didn't have to travel very far. You always pay attention to the local runners here, Brent. I give him a shot, but in the longer exotics, not in the first or second area.
I always look at the local horse. There's always a local horse in the Preakness, and this horse has 2 starts at Laurel. He's got a good trainer in John Service. The jock on this horse was Frankie Pennington, and Frankie Pennington's a good local guy at Parks. He's in the money 50% of his races, but they've elected to take a jock change here, and you know, I don't blame them, but you know, I can see this horse maybe, I don't know, maybe 4th or 5th, but I can't see any better.
I like what Johnny says. He's the only local horse here. Like he said, he has 2 wins at Laurel. I think he runs a big race in the Preakness.
All right, now Patrick Good Magic ran 2nd in the Kentucky Derby, won the BC Juvenile, of course, as a maiden. Your feeling about the number 5 horse, 3-1 morning line?
You know, Good Magic to me is such a strong second, but if you go back the last 50 years, there's only been 3 horses that have turned the tables on the Kentucky Derby winner, And there hasn't been an A-B selection since 1981, but I believe he'll run a strong second, and he's about 5 better than the rest of the field.
He's an excellent performer. Every time he runs, try to turn the tables on Justify will be tough. What I don't like about him is that when he comes out of the gate, he doesn't move forward. He usually settles somewhere in the 4th or 5th position and then makes his move about that half mile. And on Justify, that's too late. You have to be very, very close to the pace. He's only got 2 wins and 6 starts, but 6 for 6 in the money. He's very capable on his best.
The 6-horse, Vinny, tenfold, and that is another long shot, 20-1 on the morning line.
Brent won a couple at Oaklawn, 5th in the Arkansas Derby. For me, tenfold here. Just it's a matter of class, and I can't really see him. I can't use him.
He's a lightly raced with only 3 starts. Vinny mentioned his races at Oaklawn. They were both excellent, but then they try him in a Derby, and maybe it was just too much too soon. I wouldn't count him out for a piece, maybe in that 4th spot. I actually think there's 2 horses, and then there's 6 horses for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th spot. They all look very close to me.
Great human connections. The Winchells here from Las Vegas. We have Santana in the saddle. We have Asmussen, the trainer. I think this horse moves forward. He's the other Justified in the race. Has no races as a 2-year-old.
All right. We've already talked about the 7-horse Justify. Bravazzo. And the 8, here's Dwayne Lucas again, Patrick.
Dwayne. You know he's going to get a piece somewhere. Maybe this is the horse that'll get 3rd or 4th for him.
He had a rough start in the Derby, and he was also picking off insignificant horses, and to have a decent finish. He's another one that I see 4th, 5th, or 6th.
Might go out early, Brent. I believe this is the better of D. Wayne's entries here. I like him, but in the 3rd or 4th spot.
All right, guys, it's time to make some predictions. Making money at the Preakness, that's coming up next. This is Inside the Preakness, The View from Vegas, presented by VSiN and TVG. You can listen to VSiN on Sirius XM, channel 204, and follow us online at vsin.com and on Twitter at VSiN Live.
Vegas, baby, the sports gambling capital of the world and the home of VSiN, the Vegas Stats and Information Network. VSiN is the first network dedicated to coverage of sports betting, a multi-billion-dollar business. We broadcast live 7 days a week from a fishbowl studio located in the middle of the sportsbook at the South Point Hotel and Casino on Las Vegas Boulevard in the heart of Sin City. Our all-star lineup includes Hall of Fame broadcaster Brent Musburger, legendary oddsmaker Jimmy Vaccaro, and the rest of the guys in the desert. The View from Las Vegas can provide insights no other network can offer to the rest of the sports world. VSiN doesn't just give the latest odds. Our experts take you behind the sportsbook to explain how those odds are set and why they change. Listen to us on Sirius XM Channel 204. Check us out at VSiN.com or on the VSiN app. This is VSiN, changing the way you watch sports.
Welcome back to Inside the Preakness, The View from Vegas, and a look at the middle jewel of horse racing's Triple Crown, presented by VSiN and TVG. A beautiful horse, Justify, going off as a huge favorite in the second leg of the Triple Crown. You know, Vinny, this is a hard race for me to bet on because I'm always pulling for a possible Triple Crown in the Belmont.
Brent, I'm with you, and it's a great story, even though it's a rarity. And I try to be contrarian. I'm not necessarily usually a chalk eater, but you have to respect what you see and what's before you. And clearly, to me, this is the best horse in the race. And I think if he does win this race and goes for the Triple Crown, it's a great boost not only for business but for the sport of horse racing.
And John Avello down at the Win Book, I can't imagine how much bigger it is for the Belmont if there's a Triple Crown at stake.
We're certainly rooting for him. Forget the losses. We joke about that. And losses happen. We put up lines, people bet him, and it works out well for him at times, and sometimes it works well for us. So we're rooting for Justify. I want to see that Triple Crown possibility in the Belmont.
I love going for the Triple Crown. Justify can do it. The only thing, it was 135 years, and he beat that streak of Apollo Apollo lost his next race.
Ooh, I'm
after
sorry you
winning.
said that. Ooh, I wish you hadn't said that. Oh, it's the McQuiggan jinx, Benny, my boy. Okay?
You went too deep.
Sorry.
Went too deep, Patrick.
Where did you find the form chart in Apollo, my friend? So there we have the possibility of the upset. Johnny, you followed horse racing for many, many years. The off track does sometimes throw things up in the air in a big race like this.
It does, but there's different types of off track. Sometimes when it's sloppy and like glass, you got a horse like Justify seems to glide across it. If you get a lot of rain the day before and some rain in the morning and then it starts to dry up and it gets heavy, that's a whole different type of track. That's the most dangerous track to me for a horse like Justify.
You know, the great equalizer is an off track, and we've always abided by that. But these two horses absolutely dominate over the rest of this field. So I think we're moving on to the Belmont.
Sorry, Brent. You look at versatility, and these top two, certainly Good Magic and Justify fit that bill.
Is that Vinny Magliulo's wager today?
Vinny Magliulo. Justify on top, Lone Sailor and Good Magic, and the all. $1 try, it's a $12 ticket. Have fun.
Patrick McQuiggan.
I'm going Justify on top, Good Magic second, and then I'm using the 4 Diamond King, the 6 Tenfold, and the 8 Bravazzo, all the 20s and 30s.
I'm going 30,000 a show on
You're probably the smartest of us all, Johnny, my man. At least you're going to have a payday, you know?
I think I'm going to play this Justify on top with Lone Sailor, Bravazzo, and Good Magic in the second spot. Lone Sailor, Bravazzo, Good Magic, and Diamond King in the third spot.
You know, Johnny, you mentioned Sporting Chance having won a race on an off track. So I'm going to put Justify over Sporting Chance as my biggest exacta. And then smaller after that for the try. Vinny, I'll go with Justify, Good Magic, and all in that third spot.
Well, you're going to be in action, that's for sure. I mean, obviously, if Justify does it, then it's going to put a damper on it, and there'll be somebody out there with a long shot. But then again, it's kind of like I said, it's been a year of long shots.
By the way, my friend Mr. McQuiggan, has Mendelssohn finished in the Kentucky Derby?
Ouch.
Full disclosure, I was riding along with my man on that, okay? Wow. I thought I was at a NASCAR race when that gate opened, my friend.
That's 2 years in a row, Brent. We got to break out of this one.
Yeah, that curse may last as long as Apollo's. Remind me not to take the European shipper next year at the Kentucky Derby. And so there we have it, folks. Good luck when you step up and bet the Preakness today, the second jewel of racing's Triple Crown, and we may, in a few more weeks, have a Triple Crown effort by the great Justify. And don't forget to pick up our copy of Inside the Preakness, a publication presented by VSiN and TVG. Go to vsin.com/Preakness.